On today's show, the Ricmotech RS1 DIY build.
Welcome to Inside Sim Racing. I'm Jessica Lopez.
And I'm Sean Cole.
And this is another edition of DIY Build a Rig.
Build a rig. Got my overalls on, ready to do some serious construction.
And this one that we're going to be building today is by Ricmotech. We'd like to thank Frank Rico for sending us these instructions. It's a 36-page manual, which all of you out there can also purchase for $29.95. And it also comes with this template here. Well, there's actually two of them.
Full-size drawings. So these templates, you're actually going to cut them out, lay them over the wood, and cut around them. So it doesn't get much easier than that, I think.
And this particular rig is called the RS1 DIY chassis. And before we get started, some important message from Ricmotech that says, always follow the safety instructions provided with your tools. Always wear eye and ear protection. Do not wear loose clothing or jewelry which may become tangled with your tools, and wear dust mask when working with lumber to avoid inhaling fine sawdust. And as a matter of fact, if you guys hear a hum sound in the background, that's our fans running so that we can keep this room ventilated and avoid getting wood pieces in our eyes and our mouth.
I'm not thrilled with the safety gear, but we're gonna do it.
All right, okay, so without further ado, we're gonna move forward and talk to you guys about some of the materials that are required for this build. We got 3 pieces of 2x4, 8-foot construction lumber, 1 sheet of 1/2-inch AC plywood, 3 24x48 pieces of 3/4-inch MDF board, 8 hex bolts, 8 hex nuts, and a bunch of other hardware, all of which we purchased at Home Depot, or you may do so at your local hardware store. And that came out to $112 in addition to these plans, which are $30. And that all will get you your rig for just under $150, not including the seat, which may run you about $50. So this is under $200.
And we're environmentally conscious, so we're gonna recycle our seat that we've used for our last 2 builds.
Yeah, so this is costing us right under $150. Okay, the tools that are required to build this rig are a tape measure, a carpenter's square, a straight edge, a drill.
You're also gonna need some screwdriver tips, some drill bits ranging from 1/8 inch up to a 1/2 inch, a countersink bit, a 2-inch hole saw if you're going to install electronics into the bottom, which we are not. You're going to need some kind of circular saw, a jigsaw, a belt sander, or you're going to have to do some heavy sanding yourself. You know, a little elbow grease and a block sander will work. A ratchet and socket set, some bar clamps, which I don't have, but you and Darren are going to hold everything together while I drill, so I think we'll be all right there. And I think that's pretty much it. I mean, some extra little things here and there.
And also keep in mind that this rig, it can be modified for different steering wheels. The original plans come for a G27 or G25. We are going to be doing a Thrustmaster T500 wheel and pedal set.
And a
shifter.
TH8RS shifter as well, so we'll kind of modify it for our usage.
You can modify it to make things wider, or to make the cockpit longer if you want to put more equipment inside. So the modifications are endless, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
All right.
So the first thing we have to do here is prepare our templates by cutting them out on the dotted line. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. So as you can see, we have all of our templates cut out here, and
some of the pieces are a little small, so you might want to keep track of these and make sure you cut them all out and not throw away the rest of the scraps.
We're gonna get these glued on or placed onto our wood and start sawing away.
Yeah, you can see each one kind of tells you what piece it is. Some of them tell you which piece of wood it even goes on. So we'll, yeah, put a little glue on the back of each piece, put them onto the wood, and then cut around it.
There's also specific instructions on each one of these cutouts, and this makes this project extremely easy. For example, on one of them, and I can't recall which one it is, I think it was this here, you have an option for a more stylish front end or a simple front end, and there was 2 different dotted lines so you can pick and choose. And for another example here, this monitor keyboard platform top, lay this template on a 3/4 inch MDF board and cut out 1 piece. So some of these have 4 pieces or 3 pieces, and each cutout has specific instructions on what to do. Okay, so for this particular piece, which is the, I'm not sure what this is. What is it?
It's a 2x4.
2x4. We need 2 pieces, so we did not glue it down, right?
Yeah, we figured we'd mark the lines where we're going to cut, and then we'll reuse this same piece. So yeah, we're going to do that. One other thing to keep in mind when you're using a saw blade, that blade actually cuts all that material. So even though we marked this line, it's going to take a little more off. That's why we didn't mark our second one yet. We'll cut it, then we'll mark our second one.
And recut the second piece.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Okay, so Sean got all the 2x4s cut, and what's next?
Well, okay, so on the plans it shows putting the 2, we're actually into construction phase, and we're going to need that top plate or deck, the whole top cover of the plywood. So we're going to cut that piece, and then we can put that whole bottom section together, and then we can move into phase 2, which happens right after that, where we start assembling the footwell.
Okay, it sounds fun.
So.
So now we have the top of our base cut out of plywood and our 2x4s, and we're ready to do some assembling.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and zip all this together, and then once we have that in place, we'll start laying out the templates on the MDF for the uprights or the side of the pedal base.
All right, whatever he said. So as you can see here, we have everything laid out. We didn't glue our plans onto these 2x4s because we had more than one to cut out, and we had to make markings on where we will be placing everything together.
Yeah, it's where the cross members go. It shows you exactly how it lines up on both the left and right side of it. We're going to go ahead and use our regular drill with a little drill bit, a very skinny, like 1/16 drill bit, to do a pilot hole, and then we're going to use our rechargeable drill bit with a Phillips to sink our screws in, and we're going to put 2 screws per cross member because that's what the plans call for.
Okay, so we've tacked together the base here, and we have 2 pieces of 2x4 left.
To go like that. And that kind of interlocks the sides, which is going to give this thing some extra strength that like our Deathmobile did not have.
And technically this can go on either end, right?
Well, we have a direction.
Make a
It's going to kind of come out. Yeah, we kind of want to go to this end where it's coming this way. I mean, if we flipped it over, it would be the same thing, but it goes on this end, it looks like.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Okay, let's, these we can just randomly put in 6 bolts. So
we'll just equally spread them here, maybe.
yeah, but we don't want to hit the 2x4s because there's screws in there. So, like, I'll put one right here is a good spot.
Now we are going to assemble the top part of our base here.
You know, it's not 100% clear how far forward or back this top piece goes. Plus, I don't know if you remember, we went the artistic way.
Right.
And so we have a little extra that's obviously going to hang off a bit. The one area that I'm going to focus on, though, when I mount this angle is where the uprights go. And so I'm just going to make sure that the top clears it so that we're not going to have to, like, trim it. I don't know if that's going to interfere or not, but I'm just going to make sure that's not something that we run into later. And that's the position we're going to mount it at.
Okay.
Now if we just make sure it's straight.
I see that you've marked it here.
Yeah, that's so I know that I don't accidentally push it forward as I make little alignment adjustments up here right now. And I think basically once we're as straight as we're gonna get, we'll just put one screw in to kind of get it going. Now we're gonna switch those shorter screws, by the way.
We need how many of those? How many screws are we using for this?
A bunch of them. He didn't say how many. A bunch.
A bunch.
Bunch. All right.
Okay, so we have completed the whole base of the rig here.
And this thing at this point has really gained some weight with, you know, the 4 2x4s and all the cross members in the top. And just to give you an idea on the bottom, a couple of things. Number one, the 2-inch hole saw had you cutting holes in these cross members. So maybe if you're going to mount a button kicker amp right here or any other kind of components, you could run the wiring. Since we knew we weren't going to do that, we went ahead and skipped that, but that's something else you could do. We're not actually going to install any components in ours, but that's what this area could be used for. Another thing he talks about is these plans. They're great plans as a guideline. Some people might want even more space. You could do a whole nother row of 2x4s. You could do whatever you needed to lift it higher if that's what you wanted to do. So this is sort of the plans as is, but there's a lot of freedom, and that's what's cool about working with wood.
Okay, so we are going to move forward to building upward now, right?
Yeah, I think we can kind of put this to the side, grab our MDF board, go back to laying out templates, and cutting some wood.
Okay. Does a real race car have a center post? Of course not, and neither should your race rig. The R-Seat Evo V3 with its unique design has no center post. The R-Seat Evo replicates what you would be accustomed to in your daily driver or something you may take to the track. It can accommodate drivers from 4'11" up to over 6'6" tall and is pre-drilled for all of the major wheel manufacturers on the market today. When it comes to performance, look no further than the R-Seat Evo V3. Check out the R-Seat Evo and other sim racing equipment by heading to www.rseat.net. So we're moving forward and we see that he uses glue here, which we did not.
Yeah, I see his little can of glue, and I guess glue went between the 2x4s and the top, so that way, I mean, we put 40 screws through it, so I don't think we're going to have any kind of problem, but I could see it actually be better. You put that glue in there, and it keeps it from moving, kind of stops vibration, any of that. But again, I'm pretty confident in our build because of the amount of screws we put in there.
Okay, so we're gonna move forward, and it says that the next step is the assembly of the footwell. So we gotta get that cut out of our MDF board, and we're gonna go ahead and do that.
We've clamped our 2 pieces of MDF board.
We're gonna glue this down here. So we'll start off. Looks like this is also cut to the perfect width that we need, right?
Mm-hmm. I was able to buy those exactly this size.
These 2 are clamped together because?
Well, because we're gonna cut them together. So we're actually gonna drill these holes, bolt them together, and then we can cut the 2 shapes, and that way they will be identical.
Now we have all of our holes drilled in both of our MDF boards, which we have clamped together.
And now we've bolted them together because we drilled those 4 pilot holes for the big bolts. We bolted it together. We got our template glued down, and that way when we go to cut this, nothing should move between the clamps, the bolts. It should all hold in place, and that means the 2 pieces will come out identical, including all of the holes that we drilled through both sides.
And we're going to be cutting this with what type of saw?
Well, you could use a circular saw to do these straight edges, but then you got to come back in with the jigsaw. I was cutting straight with the jigsaw. I'm going to cut the whole thing with the jigsaw. I got my little laser guide, just follow the template, and it should be pretty easy.
All right, let's do it. Due to the immense amount of particles that the MDF gives off when cutting it, we have decided to move outside and do the rest of our MDF board cutting outdoors.
Well, you've seen us use a lot of wood on previous builds, and it's like with 2x4s or even plywood, it's just sawdust. This MDF kicks out this fine powder. It's getting in all of our equipment, getting in all of our stuff. We're never gonna have it cleaned up. Plus, little disclaimer, this stuff is so dense that it takes a lot of extra energy to cut it. So you saw me changing blades, trying to get an edge on it. It's gonna take time. You're just gonna have to sit there and let the saw do the work, and it's gonna take a long time. It's probably the hardest thing, or at least the most energy I've exerted in all the rig building so far.
Toxic too.
Yeah, and it's a toxic chemical. That's kind of why we want to get out of this garage, do the rest of the cutting outside in a very well ventilated area, and then we'll bring everything back in once we have it cleaned up.
Okay.
So, you know, we're laying these templates down, all these small pieces that are going to be real fun to cut with the density of this wood. We're using the edges. I don't want to cut any more than I have to, so I put this one on the square edge. Plus, factory cut edges are a lot straighter than we're going to be able to do. So this is a nice clean edge that we're using here, and then we just work around it.
Okay, so now we have finally gotten all of our pieces cut.
I like how you act like all casual, like, oh, we have them all cut.
Well,
I'm dying
he's been
over here.
slaving away cutting. And it did take quite some time to get everything all cut. And I would say, based off the 2 DIYs so far, I think this has been the more difficult.
It's been a lot more extensive cutting. And I gotta tell you, going outside was the best move of the day so far, because not only was it fresh air, so I'm working and cutting for hours, it seems, but also this stuff is just nasty. You saw me wearing the dust mask. The dust just gets everywhere, made a mess, made my life, I'm covered in it. So getting outside was a good move, made it a lot easier to get all these pieces. And you can see we have a lot of pieces that we had to cut some, nice little angles on. And so, I mean,
And we did come across our first dilemma of the day.
Yeah, well, you can see, look, I did a really nice job on this one. Right there on the template, just the way you're supposed to. This one, well, you can probably see.
Hold it still for me.
It's a little uneven right here.
Yeah, my saw blade kind of caught and jumped and did this, and of course that's the one that I had glued the template. So that was the big debate of the day, gluing the template down, and I made a mess of the template. So then I traced it and made my second one, because you need 2 of this piece, of course, the one that I messed up. And not only is it shorter and longer here, but down here on the chunk side, it's a real mess. This is the shifter mount. And I know that this was designed around a Logitech. We might need to change this design. So right now I'm gonna let it fly. We're gonna put it together as is, and if it's really a mess, I'll redo it, or if we need to modify it, then that'll kind of save me there anyway.
Okay, so I guess it is now time for us to start actually putting all of our pieces together.
Yeah, now we get to put all of this together on that subframe, and this is when it starts getting good, because it's going to start looking like a sim rig, not just like a piece of flooring. Note, by the way, it calls for a big piece of plywood, because you do need a very large piece of plywood, but we do have quite a bit of leftover plywood that we might use for a future project.
Okay.
Oh, we might have found our second problem. Yeah?
No,
Yeah?
because look at this. See how that goes like that, and it goes over the piece?
Yeah, but this is facing the other way around.
It is backwards.
Okay. We have to flip it over, that's all.
I'm a little bit confused here, but I've been told that everything is backwards.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm very good at cutting, but I'm not so good at reading directions. We built this right side up, but upside down. We are doing it all right, but this top goes on the bottom. So we have to undo this real quick, flip it over, put this back down the other way, and then these are gonna fit into place.
Okay.
And I'll get it done real quick.
Okay. So we have now fixed our second problem of the day, which you guys just saw, and we are back in action
Yeah.
and ready to move forward.
No longer embarrassed? Or I'm not.
It's okay, mistakes happen. That was an easy mistake to fix, thankfully, right?
Yeah, we got it done pretty quick, but I would have liked to have got it done right the first time by reading the instructions, measuring twice, cutting once, all that stuff we always remind you of.
So now we're going to put these side panels on, and we already pre-drilled our holes, which you guys have seen earlier.
Yeah, we use those as guides for drilling with the 1/2-inch blade through the 2x4s that are there. Then we can bolt those down. That's what the 8 big 1/2-inch bolts are for.
All right, well, let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're moving forward onto our pedal bridge.
Yeah, and we're supposed to glue these two pieces together. If we are doing a Logitech set of pedals, we would have cut that center groove.
Yes.
And it's for the mounting holes. But since we're mounting Thrustmaster, I'm not going to worry about it. We're going to have to adapt at some point anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the next step, which is glue these together. Now, one thing you're going to notice is I didn't cut these together. So all of my corners are a little bit different with my fancy rounded edges. Not so cool. And that's something that we can work on in the finishing department. So I'm going to let that slide right now. If you want to be really a perfectionist, though, this is the moment that I would actually sand these and get these matched up as nicely as you want. I might let ours be a little more rough around the edges in the name of getting it done.
Okay, so let's get this glued together.
Oh, the other thing is, since these were all hand cut, it does fit slightly better one direction than the other. So I went ahead and picked the direction they matched up better, and that's the way we're going to glue it.
Okay, so we're attaching our pedal bridge, and we've noticed that some of our pre-drilled holes didn't quite match up with the pedal bridge.
Well, on the you noticed this, Jessica, on the drawing, that thing's like kind of sitting downward a little bit. And
Yeah,
we put ours in flush.
Yeah, so when we were putting the screws in, we noticed that they weren't going into the pedal bridge. So
Yeah.
now we're making some additional holes so that everything fits.
Yeah.
We've decided to leave the pedal bridge flushed with the sides, the
Yeah.
face, so that everything's even. But the directions show it a little inward, but it doesn't specify, it doesn't say specifically. So I guess it's to your liking.
Yeah.
So here's our pre-drilled holes, and on the opposite side, they don't go into our pedal base. So Sean is going to drill 3 more holes a little closer in. Okay, so now we're gonna move forward and go ahead and place our keyboard and steering wheel deck onto the sides here with our pre-drilled holes, as you guys can see here. And we're gonna get it all punched in.
Yeah, and I think we have to do a few pre-drilled holes because I think this one goes like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the extra reinforcement for the keyboard holder. And actually, I think it actually goes like that now that I look at it.
Right.
And then that slips in on top, and then this goes right underneath it. And then we'll have sort of the upper portion of this all set.
All right. So now we have drilled on our wheel stand, and the wood is kind of starting to split here. We think that maybe there's a little too many screws, but we're gonna move forward and build our shifter mound.
Yeah.
And Sean is clamping these 2 pieces together that we showed you earlier, and we're gonna start screwing them together. So now, as you can see, we have our shifter mount built. And while we were putting the screws in, we noticed that some of the wood was starting to split in some places, as well as on the wheel stand. And that can be avoided by pre-drilling some additional pieces. We did pre-drill some pieces.
Yeah, well, what we had done is we had pre-drilled the outside pieces.
Yeah.
But what we didn't do was pre-drill where it goes into the cross brace. And you can see this crack right here, or that split, and that happened when we sunk this. On this side, we actually re-ran our drill bit through the holes that were already there, and that pre-drilled the cross members as well, and we got no splitting on that one, or much less splitting. But even with the splitting, this thing is really, really hardy. It's not gonna have any trouble. And this I do say somewhere because I don't know where we're gonna want our shifter. So I'm gonna wait
until the seat is on and see
Exactly.
where it's comfortable.
Exactly. But at this point, I believe we're pretty close to done, if not done. I mean, I say done. We're down to the finish work where we usually get to on these builds. I want to completely paint this first, because if I put the seat down first, then there'll be no paint underneath it, and we've learned a lesson on that one. We also know that it's just 4 bolts on the two per seat rail for the seat, and that's all it's going to take to cinch this down.
Looks like there's some additional pieces of wood that we need to put the seat on.
I think this is a case where everybody's gonna have a different opportunity depending on what equipment your seat has. So we've done a couple of builds already. We've done the piece of wood like they show in the instructions here. We also did the piece of profile on our last one, and I like that, and I think that's still on our rig. So we're gonna, oh no, we removed it.
It's on PVC.
Okay. So yeah, maybe we'll make a couple of strips of wood, but for now, it's time to get this out into the paint shop, and then we can go into finishing.
That's gonna wrap up this edition of DIY rig build, and this is the RS1 DIY chassis by Ricmotech, and we once again want to thank Frank Rico for sending us the instruction manual and the blueprints or cutouts for us to follow. And
I want to thank him for bearing through watching this build, if he did watch it, because of the amount of mistakes we made when he did such a great job of instructions. We said it would be like painless and flawless, and yet I found a way to make a flaw.
Well, we did have some hiccups along the way, but hopefully that helps all of you out there when you're building this rig avoid those mistakes, and so we make them for you, and we hope that you've enjoyed this show. Like Sean mentioned, this is going to go into paint. So we'll be back with another follow-up with the seat mounted on, and the rig will be beautifully painted, and the shifter mount will be connected, and we will review and give you guys our final thoughts on this rig. And have we decided on a color yet?
Black?
Again? I think, in my opinion, we should do something fun and funky, and
Fun and funky.
maybe go red or green or neon, or just do something different.
You know, I
as
have
opposed
a
to
bunch of leftover black paint. That's why I'm kind of prone to black.
Well, I vote for lime green or neon green.
All right, we'll see what we can do about that.
Okay, well, we hope you guys enjoyed this show. Make
Oh,
sure.
I did want to talk about finish real quick.
Sure.
You know, on all the other rigs, we kind of got to this point, we took it outside and we just slapped some paint on it. This rig came out so nice, and wood's one of my favorite materials to work. I'm kind of torn. Like, do I really? I might want to spend some time sanding these edges so they're not sharp, and making sure there's no weird little. Because this is a beautiful rig.
What about a glossy wood color, like a nice finished gloss?
That's kind of cool. Yeah, yeah.
You know how they do with furniture, and kind of if somebody has like wood furniture, it can match.
I don't know if the MDF will look so good that way.
Well, there's a thought.
We'll give it some planning.
All right, well, we'll see you guys when we review this bad boy, and we'll have a name for it, and it'll be nice and painted up. And we hope that you guys have enjoyed this segment of Inside Sim Racing DIY rig build. Thank you for watching. InsideSimRacing.tv. We have a lot of things going on over there. Make sure you join in and join the conversation. And we even have your Build a Rig
Sim Rig of the Week.
Sim Rig of the Week contest going on.
That's the Tamiya Sim Rig of the Week contest, where we want everybody to submit their rigs. We're going to put them all together, then we're going to kind of vote on which one we all like, give away some prizes for that. Also, we have not just the Ricmotech and some people who've been waiting to build this, we have the other DIYs and everybody else's rigs out there. So lots of inspiration for rig building out there.
And if you like more information on the Ricmotech, you can go to ricmotech.com. And I guess that's going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Checker flag is out, and so are we.